So with the next couple of sets being announced now, we've kind of got a definite few months ahead of us. We've got Prismatic Evolutions that obviously has now been leaked fully pretty much. We've got a lot of information, and then we will start to get more as we get into December with the Japanese version of it. We've just got Surgeon Sparks, and there is just a lot on the horizon with the Rocket set, with Gym Heroes, and many, many more to come. But we already have a lot of decent sets in Scarlet and Violet. So the question is, where should I buy? Should I invest in a specific set? Is there some that are better to do it than others? It's gonna be an interesting one. So we've got all of the sets lined up to see which ones you realistically should be looking at. And most definitely it comes down to personally your taste of it, depending on what you personally like. Do you like collecting a card rather than a product? There is a lot of different ways that you can invest, and most definitely whenever I talk about investment, it is not necessarily to hoard 50 to 60 boxes of each set. It's more than likely to maybe have an ETB in your set, a booster box, a couple of products that most definitely are an interesting one to say the least. So when it comes to these personally, one of my favorites from every generation, which I think every single person will completely agree with, is going to be the likes of 151. I think that is an absolute must across the board. Everybody likes that set because it is a nostalgic set. It's one of them sets where you just enjoy most of the cards. Now, obviously, when we look across the board with a lot of these sets, you're not really looking for the kind of standard set. Everybody's looking at the special arts, the alt art, like everything that comes after the actual set. That is what everybody wants. Now, there is always some nice ones here, especially some of the new EX cards. I think they do really pop. The Pikachu with the rainbow border, it's a very nice card, but realistically, the value comes after the trainers. That's just always what it's been. And in 151, the selection is outstanding. From obviously the Bulbasaur, if I can zoom in a little bit, that'd be perfect. From the Bulbasaur, the Ivysaur, Charmander. The only thing I have with this set person that really annoyed me is the fact that Venusaur's not there. I know a lot of people do change it, so they put the Venusaur, then obviously the Charizard and the Blastoise. I just think that is how it should be, personally, to me anyway. Obviously then you've got the Pikachu, the Nidoking, a bit of Psyduck. Would have loved a Nidoqueen here, personally. I think that would have been really nice as a pairing there. Machoke, obviously, cracking card. Love the Poliwhirl. There is just so much decent artwork across the board with this. Then to obviously the kind of extra special Charizard, Venusaur, Blastoise before we get into their alt arts. Obviously, as some of the fan favorites. Again, would have potentially really liked like a Blaine or something in this. Would have been quite nice. But you can't necessarily focus too much on trainers in a set like this. Alakazam, Zapdos, Moltres, the whole shebang. Again, a Mewtwo or Mew alt art would have been really nice in this card as well. I know they did come as the promos, so I can kind of understand. But this set was just a number one. I think that one was pretty self-explanatory for it. Now, if we roll our heads all the way back to the likes of Scarlet and Violet base set. So this normally is one of them sets that can do well over time, and I'm talking when I'm looking at investing in a set like this is more for the long haul. It's not necessarily for next month, next year. It's for when they are completely out of rotation. We've changed 2 sets down the line, we're on whatever it is. So for instance, if you was looking at this from an X and Y point of view, or a black and white, or even going as far down as a sun and moon, and kind of thinking, okay, in 2 sets time, like in 2 generations, so where like Sword and Shield is now on the next generation, and whatever that is, it goes 2 years past that. I'm kind of thinking more down that line. We're talking 5 to 10 years when they are completely not in rotation at all. There is going to be a lot of sets that do have products still available in like 5 to 10 years, because that is just how a community does kind of see a vintage set and thinking, okay, well, we've still got packs from 20 years ago. There's going to be sets still available for this, but the pricing is going to take a massive toll on obviously not being in production whatsoever. No booster boxes, no premium collection boxes that come out a year later, like 151 for instance, and reprint is not even on the cards. So when we look at the base set, that technically is the oldest set of this whole generation because it's number one. And when you look at it in general, I think there's a reason why a lot of products don't come in at a very high price, and to be fair, it's got a very bulky, big kind of base set of cards in it. This was, well, in general, Pokemon cards in terms of a set are just hitting new heights with how large a set is. It's not necessarily the first of its kind. Looking through a lot of the older sets, there's still some sets with like 280 on the cards, whereas I think with base set, the problem you've got, and I think when we was looking through it, you got a couple of nice cards, but there's not necessarily a crazy deal. Like, I like the Riolu, and I think it depends on what Pokemon are actually in the alt arts as well, because if they're not necessarily a favorite, there's going to be less kind of spread that a lot of people are going to be wanting it. And to be fair, I think that I saw it somewhere else when someone else was talking about Scarlet and Violet base set a few months ago. It is very just colourless. There's nothing really that stands out. It's very bland. It's very a little bit boring. Now, obviously, we're looking at a computer screen, of course. It's not necessarily going to pop as much as having the whole set in front of you. That's fair enough to say, but there's nothing that I'm like, okay, this is pretty sick. Like, even the Spindops, I'd have really liked a little bit extra here. We see, obviously, Miriadon and Koraidon. I think them cards are fantastic, but we did get the promo ETBs from them as well, so it's not even if that it was that much of a special design there. Guada, I can never say her name, she was a brilliant card, really like that. Great Tusk, I think, and Iron Treads, both very nice cards and a lovely introduction to this set, most definitely. But when I'm kind of looking at it, I think with the base set, you kind of go in on the factor that it's the very first of its kind. So you kind of know that it's always pretty much just a solid option, because if they want to start a Scarlet and Violet kind of set, you want to collect every Scarlet and Violet set, that is the oldest, that is the one that you've got to get to, and it's quite a large set. So I think that's a pretty solid kind of play if you wanted to go there. When we look at the rest then, the next one up would be the likes of Paldea Evolved. Now, personally for me, I don't know if a lot of people are all about this, but I really like this set. I thought this was actually quite a cracking set. And to be fair, there is still quite a few that I'm like, I don't get why they're so cheap. There's definitely a decent amount. I don't think the actual set itself is too bulky. You've obviously got the introductions of EXs in these kind of sets from Scarlet and Violet as well, which is nice. So it adds a little bit of pop of colour as we normally get with like GXs, tag teams, all of them. So we got a relatively big set in general for the normal kind of collection, but it didn't feel too heavy on the bulk. And then we've got a very nice splash of colour across everything. We start with a beautiful Heracross, lovely Sprigato, a lot of the kind of starters, which is quite nice. And I think that's another thing when people are collecting this, is loving this generation. This generation is a massive factor in terms of what they're actually giving us. So when we look at the Fuecoco and the previous evolutions, we got Quaxly. If you like that specific generation, you're going to love a lot of the Scarlet and Violet sets. We do obviously have the Magikarp in this one. Again, very nice designs. And I must admit, the sets in terms of the alt arts from them have got a very nice spread across them. Like, you can tell the different art forms that people are using, the different sort of colors that are blending, and you can definitely tell like something like this, like totally different compared to a Quaxly, to a Magikarp, to obviously one of these as well. It's very nice to see a different contrast on artists that are using, to then using different kind of angles for Pokemon. Tyranitar looking absolutely massive in this, and then having just a little bit of humor with it, a little bit of a kind of a photobomb. It's a nice set, and I think this one for me is one of my favorites to definitely do well. And I'm not necessarily talking about where the products are at the moment in terms of pricing, but I think in the future this has definitely got an absolute must to buy on this set for me personally. I just don't think that this set could get any kind of worse, in my opinion. I think it only goes up in the near future, which would be nice, and then hopefully at a long time away will do really, really well. When we look at it, we're going to spread a couple of across away from the old past. Prismatic Evolutions, I think that's going to be a dub regardless. There was definitely a lot of talk around it, and I think with The likes of this set, it's going to be huge regardless. There's definitely been a few more of kind of stock intakes, and naturally we're going to get a lot of stock that comes on, it goes off, out of stock, resale, and it's just about getting your right price, to be honest. I've managed to get 2 ETBs at the moment for a relatively decent price, rather than paying the $200, $300, $400 for the Pokemon Center one. If you're obviously wanting that specific product, then fair enough, but I do think try and get it at a very reasonable price if you can. It's gonna be one of them that the hype just doesn't seem to be going away, especially with all of the alt arts allowed. It's just a nut set. I think that set is regardless going to be one of the most favorite sets of probably the past few years. Evolving Skies was massive. I think this will actually trump it, which is just absolutely nuts. Another one, and it's going to be an interesting one for it, is the Surging Sparks. It's came out today, or yesterday in fact, and it's an interesting one because it's probably one of the first ones with such a hype to it. Like 151 had a cracking hype. It was obviously up there, but this one has got that next level. Like the pre-orders on it, the out of stock was absolutely nuts. And I think the set is absolutely gorgeous as always. Some really nice card designs across the board, like some of the EXs that they've brought out. Obviously Pikachu is one of the fan favorites from the set. It is an icon within it. I'm personally not a big Terra fan. I think it looks nice on some of them. I like the border, I like they foot outside the box, but it's not my favorite design personally, and I can get behind some of them. I do think that, for instance, the Alt Art Pikachu in this is a very stunning card, but it's not necessarily my number one. I much prefer it without personally, but I can get behind it still, and I know a lot of people do grow up with the Terra era, whereas I personally didn't. So it's kind of a brand new thing to me. Even like the Gigamax and Dynamax, it's not within my remit. I'm kind of just on the edge of Megas, to be honest with you. I'm very much a standard Pokemon card. Like, we look at some of the arts, it's really nice. I got this Kecleon yesterday, really like the artwork on that. Like, I wish that artwork would have switched with the Kecleon that we've got down here, because we've got one, where is it? Like this one, it's okay, but I really like the other one. I don't know. I think in a full art, that card would have been outrageously good. We've obviously got the Latias and Latias. Love the pairing. It's two of my favourite legendaries in this. Obviously, Fanfi with the Dolphins. I'm always a big fan, and I very much like, we did get the card cast form, wherever that is. What number was it? It was like 195, was it? Where is it? 195. This card in general, like, I wish I could move it out of the way. Let's just click onto it. Just having the different cast forms in it as well, it's just a beautiful design. It's, again, one of my more favored things is it bringing in other Pokemon cards as well. Oh, Pokemon within the actual card itself is stunning. And then also throwing in like a design that links. I know we've seen that in a fair few cards. It's just a very, very nice one. Obviously Pikachu, Hydrogen are going to be two of the massive ones. The Latias card is going to be a big one as well. Again, very nice. I must admit though, I know this one is the more expensive. I do really like this one more. I think in person, this one just, it has more of the kind of background. I know we're looking at more Latias's head, its body. It's a very iconic Pokemon, as we know, but I do prefer the other one, I must admit. But the Pikachu is always going to be there. I think this set personally is going to be always a fan favorite. It's quite an easy one. When you've got Pikachu, as hard as he is to get in this set, it's always going to be a very good set to try and get, and in terms of an investment point of view, it's an absolute must in my opinion. Then we have got the likes of Paldean Fates. Now this one for me is an interesting one because obviously this is the shiny vault. This is where you get a lot of kind of the shiny Pokemon, and it's a very, very hard and tedious set to try and get because we have the EXs, we have the standard set that goes up to 91, not very difficult to get, that's pretty easy. But then we have this. Now, for me, I'm a big fan of this. This set is a must every single time. I'm a really, really big fan of having this as a set. I think as well, if we was to mirror the game, for instance, Scarlet and Violet, I don't know if this does. I'm assuming it must do, or at least has done in some way. I don't think this one does actually. Looking at the cards and thinking, well, we've got Charmander in it, is I would love this to have the decks of the Scarlet and Violet game, because I know they do come out at the same time. So for instance, Black and White came out. I wish the Shiny Vault would have been the decks that you get from the Black and White game. I know it's a little bit more difficult to do, and maybe doesn't have the Pokemon they want to, but I'm a big fan of this shiny deck sort of thing, and I think it's absolutely outrageous to try and get. It's such a lovely set to be able to get as well. If you get all of these, that will take you a lot of time. I think this is the one of the more beautiful sets that you can get. It's clean, it's silk, it takes a lot of dedication to get every single one at a reasonable price as well. It's not just going out and buying every single one for whatever price you put on the table. I'm a big fan of it personally, so it is a must for me. Then you obviously have got the Alt-Art still, the Gardevoir, and then obviously you've got the Charizard as well. I just think this for me is one of my more favoured sets in terms of actual investment point of view. I think an investment into the cards, into the shiny deck, yes, 100%. If you can get a lot of them, cheaper price, naturally they should go up over sort of value. But I think when it comes to products, because it is a special set, no booster box, it is just total booster bundles, ETBs, I will find a lot of people will just go out and buy specific cards rather than try and pack one of these special cards. Because trust me, it is very difficult to try and get the one that you want. So I'd imagine a lot of people will just go out and buy singular cards rather than necessarily going out and going crazy with it. And let's kind of hurry up a little bit more, because I think we're doing a lot of time. So in terms of kind of just speaking about the rest of the sets, obviously when it looks at Stellar Crown, it's a decent set. I think it's got some legs to go to it. It's quite cheap at the moment, so I do think if you are buying right now, in the near future it will do well. I don't think it will go as crazy as kind of first imagining with it. Again, it's got some nice cards, but it's again a very specific set in my opinion. So I personally would go more towards a no, really. Obviously, Shrouded Fable being a base set, kind of just a very small special set. I don't think it's got any legs personally. It's one of them ones that, for me, is just very, very standard. Nothing too crazy with it. It's got a couple of nice cards, but I wouldn't say in products point of view, I would really go near it, in my opinion. I think it's only okay. Again, depends on what you're kind of going for here. Again, it depends on if you're looking at products or cards. I'm going off products here, so it's the same as kind of like Paladin Fates. It's definitely a solid set to go with, but I'd say with cards, I'd say with products, it's only really good. With cards, I'd say it's solid. So if we kind of move them up a little bit. Temporal Forces, not really a fan, to be honest. I thought it was only okay, in my opinion. I thought it was it's kind of just there, really. It's got nothing really that I'm saying yes to. Then we've also got Paradox Rift. I'm trying to remember which one, because this one is Volcarona. What card is this? Is this Iron Valiant? Obviously, I don't even know which card is the top one for this one. Again, it might not be the greatest point of view to have then, seeing as though it's not really got too much legs on it. Again, I'd probably go more towards Stellar Crown, in my opinion, with this. It's kind of very much on the bog standard sort of view, really. And then we have got the likes of Obsidian Flames and Twilight Masquerade. Now, Obsidian Flames, for me, doesn't have a very good Charizard, in my opinion. I think it's a nice set, but it doesn't have what I wanted. I thought it was going to be way better than what it is. Obviously, the first Charizard doesn't even come here, so unfortunately there's no base set version to it. They have gone very much on the dark side of Charizard as well at times, which is what it is, but we see the very first one coming in at the gold, and then obviously the 223, and then there's 215 as well. I'm just not a fan. I don't really like it personally, so I think that is a little bit of a letdown. So even Charizard for me wouldn't necessarily help it in the overall, for me anyway. And then we have got Twilight Masquerade, which, to be honest, I think is a very underrated set. I think it's one of them ones that you just gotta love at times. It's kind of just there. There's some nice cards with it. It came out at a decent time. Obviously, when we look at the alt-arts for it as well, it's got some bangers. Like, it's got some absolute heat. Like Infernape, incredible. Absolutely love that card in person. It's beautiful. We have some totally different with Tatsugiri. Beautiful. We have the EVs. incredible. Obviously, Chansey with Snorlax, Psyduck in the background for all your nostalgic fans. You've obviously got the Orgapon masks as well, just adds a different layer to it. And then obviously the lovely trainers, but Greninja EX. I think this set has absolute legs for it. Wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be a must, but I'd say at the very minimum, you're looking at a solid investment at the very, very minimum for it. That is going to be my list. I think I'm about right with them in my opinion. Let me know down below what you think. Again, it will all go down to how you like the sets and how you perceive them going over time.